fucking, yo, what's up? What's fucking lit, fam? I think it's an intro. It's a meme intro. It's a meme intro. Got him. I want to talk about violence in video games again. I think last time I kind of let my emotions get the better of me because I get very defensive about this topic. Just because, you know, I've been playing video games ever since I was like fucking 3 fucking years old, playing on the Sega Genesis, being a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and yet I haven't killed anyone. So, it's a topic that gets me very fired up. I know the Game Theorists actually did an episode on it where I say he as in MatPat, the person who basically started game theory, but he looked at whether or not mass shootings can be a cause, or can be caused by violent video games. And when you look at the rise of video games, especially violent video games, it really just didn't start coming out until the early 90s with games like Wolfenstein. That one was really big. Doom obviously was gigantic, and Mortal Kombat being the biggest contributor of violent video games. Now, don't get me wrong, like Mortal Kombat back then was violent, but like now it's absolutely fucking grotesque. That's a topic for another day. But all these games came out in the early 90s. Okay, like I think Doom came out in 93. I think Wolfenstein and Mortal Kombat came out in 92, I think. These are all statistics that MatPat gave, and all the dates I'm going to say come from the game theorists. So if we get anything wrong, it's their fault. But MatPat looked at the last 18 mass shooters in this country. When I say mass shooters, I mean like more than 10 people died in this shooting. So 18 times that's happened in the last 20 years. 18 times. 18 times that's happened in the last 20 years. Okay, which is fucking dumb. It's stupid. Okay, now I was a dumb and stupid. But out of these 18 shooters, only 4 had any, were any big into video games. They might have played them like a little bit on the side, but only 4 actually just played video games as a major hobby of their lives. So 4 out of 18, that's not, that doesn't mean the video games caused that to happen. Because you think of the millions of people who play video games in this country, because the United States spends more money on video games than any other country in the world, obviously. So when you look at everyone in this country who plays video games, and over the last 18 major mass shootings that involve more than 10 people, only 4 of those shooters actually play video games as a major hobby. So what does that tell you? Out of the tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who play video games in this country, 4 are mass shooters. That is a number so astronomically tiny that it's not a cause for concern. It's not. It's no cause for concern. That number is that percentage is so tiny that I don't even think a calculator would even give you that. I don't think a calculator would even show you what percentage that is, because that number is so tiny. Okay, so, but when you do look at the murder rate in this country, it has declined since 1980. It has went down every single fucking year since 1980. Okay, you know what video game is big back in 1980? Pac-Man. Are you gonna say Pac-Man has caused all these mass shootings? No, they weren't saying that. Okay, so if you are a parent and you are concerned and you are ignoring all of the scientific evidence that shows video games don't cause violence in people, okay? Okay, let me talk about the studies. Some of the studies are so ass backwards that they're just trying to push their narrative. Most of these studies are so ass backwards, they're trying to push their own narrative, which is dumb. It's just stupid. Whether or not they're trying to, you know, push a article headline on get themselves, you know, it's one thing. Or unless it's political bias, and that's another. But there is no solid string of scientific studies that even remotely say that video games are the cause of this. So they're not the cause of this. If you look at the top 10 countries who play video games pretty regularly, it's like the US, China, Japan, South Korea, Germany, UK, I think France is up there. 9 of them actually release statistics like this. China is the only one that doesn't. I mean, even though China's number 2, we're number 1 in terms of video game sales. So, the amount of money spent on video games, China's number 2. Oh, we're always number 1. But if you combine all of those countries' murder rates in terms of like deaths by guns, okay, you can combine all of them, all 8 other countries in the top 10, minus China because we don't know their statistics, is still less than half of the United States. Like, we don't see violent crimes, we don't see violent mass shootings anywhere else in the world besides the United States. So it can't be video games. Because statistically, South Korea plays more video games than we do in terms of a percentage of their population. And Japan's number 3. And their death by gun rate is even fucking lower than 4 out of 18 million, you know? It's just ridiculous. Japan basically has no gun violence. No gun violence in Japan. You know why? Because it's so fucking hard to buy a gun. It's insanely hard to buy a gun if you live in Japan. But in the United States, if I wanted to, right now, I can say hell with it. I can go to Walmart, buy myself a fucking gun. Today. I can get one today. Or I can just text a buddy I know who has a lot of guns and be like, yo, you want to sell me one of your guns? Be like, alright, sure. Like, I just ask him, you want to sell me one of your guns? And he would do it. And you don't need a fucking license to buy a gun from a private seller, which is ridiculous. So video games do not cause this violence in this country. It's a complete other monster that we just are I guess afraid to talk about. If you think I made up like half these fucking statistics, go to the Game Theory's YouTube page right now. I think it still should be their most latest video, where MatPat talks about video games and violence, and he talks about how he's so afraid to talk about this topic because he was afraid of what he was going to find. But what he did find was nothing. Video games don't cause this. So stop pushing that narrative that video games cause violence, because they fucking don't. Grow up. Use your actual fucking brain, okay? Just because, you know, your son can play Madden with his friends online doesn't mean he's gonna go to Walmart and shoot up half the fucking store, okay? If you're that concerned, if you actually think that video games cause violence and you are a parent, all you have to do is not buy your child rated M games. If you actually think video games cause mass shootings, then just don't buy your children the games. Like, if you refuse to look at science and studies, you can just not buy your children those games. Or you can actually look at the scientific studies and say, oh yeah, they don't cause violence. You know, it's just a cool game, you know? Boom, that's it. That's all it is. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm really fucking thirsty. And I'm gonna eat and probably sleep forever. Goodbye.